Hello everyone and welcome to this important episode of Ignition Time. Folks, some brand new information has emerged about the status of the infrastructure plan, the $2.25 trillion infrastructure plan that the Biden administration is attempting to pass, the American Jobs Plan. We have some brand new comments, some very, very important comments from the one and only, the conservative senator from West Virginia, the conservative Democrat Senator from West Virginia, Joe Manchin. There he is. What's up, Joe? And also some important updates from the other important senator from West Virginia, the Republican Senator Shelley Moore Capito. What's up, Senator? So here's what's happening, folks. The Biden administration wants to pass a $2.25 trillion infrastructure plan. And what's interesting is $600 billion out of the infrastructure plan from the Biden administration is money set aside for physical infrastructure, for our roads, for our bridges, for our airports, for our railroads. So this is the physical infrastructure, the traditional infrastructure part of the Biden plan. But here's the important news. As far as Joe Manchin is concerned, we're going to do whatever it takes. We're going to spend as much money as needed, and we'll spend $4 trillion if needed. As far as Joe Manchin is concerned, it's going to be raining money. In fact, there's going to be so much money that I'm going to be drowning in all this money. Oh my God. Okay, I assure you that I'm okay despite that onslaught of money that just happened. Folks, in all seriousness, here's a tweet on your screen from Sahil Kapoor, who's a national political reporter for NBC News, and he's actually quoting something that Joe Manchin said to Alex Burns, who's a staff writer for The Hill. So thank you to Sahil and Alex for this information. This is very important. There is something that Shelley Moore Capito, the Republican senator from West Virginia, proposed, and Joe Manchin responded to that, basically saying, no, we're going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to get you folks caught up right now. So let me get our viewers and subscribers caught up. Shelley Moore Capito, the Republican senator from West Virginia, proposed that the Republicans and the Democrats work together in a bipartisan way to pass a $600 to $800 billion infrastructure only plan. And she pretty much said that, hey, if the Democrats want to do a second bill with all their additional items, they can do so through reconciliation. Folks, this is a very interesting idea. This allows the Republicans to say, we voted for infrastructure. And it allows the Democrats to say, hey, we got infrastructure done in a bipartisan way. Now, what's really interesting, this is extremely interesting, is that the Republicans want to pass an $800 billion infrastructure only package. And this again was proposed by the Republican Senator Shelley Moore Capito from West Virginia. Here's where things get even more interesting. Joe Manchin, the conservative Democrat from West Virginia, basically said this about his Republican colleague. He said, nah, we're simply going to spend as much money as it takes. Again, as far as Joe Manchin's concerned, it's going to be raining money. Check that out. It's going to be raining money. And he said, if we have to spend $4 trillion, we'll spend $4 trillion. Basically, what Joe Manchin is saying is we should not be putting a cap on the amount of infrastructure spending. And this is the important part. He said we can spend as much money as it takes as long as we pay for it. So let's show you the tweet from Sahil. And Sahil reports Manchin is not buying the $800 billion infrastructure price tag from Senator Shelley Moore Capito that was floated. And he said there's no number that should be set on at all. This is a very important comment from Joe Manchin. There's no number that should be set on at all. Again, a very important comment. Joe Manchin also says this: we're going to do whatever it takes. If it takes $4 trillion, I'd do $4 trillion, but we have to pay for it. Folks, this is very important. There's a lot to unpack here. Joe Manchin is basically saying there is no upper limit on the amount of money that should be spent on infrastructure. And he's talking about traditional infrastructure because he's contradicting Shelley Moore Capito, whose focus was on traditional infrastructure. In short, Joe Manchin is saying, listen, if we need to spend $4 trillion, and by the way, I don't think it'll be that high. If we have to spend $4 trillion on traditional infrastructure, why are we capping ourselves to $800 billion? That's number one. Number two, he's saying he will support whatever plan is appropriate, whatever plan fits the needs of the country. I quote, I do $4 trillion, but we have to pay for it. So what Joe Manchin is saying is, as long as we can come to a consensus on how we can pay for this. There is no upper limit to the amount of spending that we should be doing. And folks, this is big news. And also, I want our viewers and subscribers to know that when a bill has to be done in a bipartisan way, it needs two-thirds support in the Senate. I'm talking 67 senators out of a total of 100 senators. So it is possible that even if Joe Manchin does not support this $800 billion infrastructure plan, it could pass in the United States Senate. Now, it has to go through the House as well. But if a bill like this can pass in the United States Senate, we could see an $800 billion infrastructure plan. And by the way, it looks like the Republicans will not go higher than $800 billion. But what's interesting is the power of Joe Manchin is significant in this case, but it is not as significant as it was, let's say, in a situation where the Democrats absolutely needed his vote for a simple majority, which is what they needed for the American Rescue Plan. By the way, a simple majority is 51 senators out of 100, okay? A two-thirds majority, which is the traditional majority needed to get stuff done in the Senate, is 67 senators. So this is a highly unique situation, and it honestly puts the White House in a predicament, and the White House is probably scratching their heads wondering, okay, looks like we have Joe Manchin support for the infrastructure plan. There's no limit, which, by the way, the Democrats like. The Democrats like doing bigger things and like doing, like essentially that is their mantra relative to the Republicans. But the important thing here is, can the administration come up with a way to pay for this in a manner that gets Joe Manchin's vote and potentially in a manner that even gets the Republicans to support them? And that is what governing is all about. Folks, in my opinion, the best ideas come from both sides of the aisle. So if the administration can come up with an idea about taxation that can get Joe Manchin's support, and they know that Joe Manchin is ready to do whatever it takes, the White House could potentially try and even spend more, or at the very least allocate more towards traditional infrastructure. So the really fascinating thing in this situation is, for the White House, is, hey, we can actually spend more than the $600 or the $650 billion we have allocated for traditional infrastructure in the American Jobs Plan. Maybe even shuffle the American Jobs Plan, the $2.25 trillion plan, to have more towards infrastructure and less towards some of the other priorities that the Biden administration has. In that way, they can maybe, just maybe, get the Republicans on board, because the Republicans want around $800 billion. And they can maybe even get Joe Manchin on board. This could end up being a compromise where both sides get to take credit. Folks, politics is about timing, opportunity, tribalism, and perception. If the Republicans can make it seem that, hey, we did a bipartisan package with the Democrats on infrastructure, and the Democrats can now say, hey, we were the ones who came up with the whole idea, and we were the ones who did the bipartisan deal, not them. And Joe Manchin can say, I did this for the people of West Virginia. And then, in addition, if the Democrats use the process of reconciliation to pass their additional priorities, we could see a rather interesting situation where Joe Manchin, whose vote, by the way, is critical for the reconciliation, could end up influencing the fate of the $800 billion infrastructure package. The reason this is very important, folks, is at the end of the day, the best ideas come from both sides, Republicans and Democrats. And I feel right now, at this point in time, it is in the best interests of the country to do something bipartisan, because the American people want the Republicans to work with the Democrats. They want the Democrats to work with the Republicans, because we are sick and tired of this yo-yo, this pendulum of extreme Republican priorities versus extreme Democratic priorities. We need a way forward. We need a middle ground so we can move forward as a country. For me, it's not about the red or the blue. It's about the red, white, and blue. I'm not Democrat. I'm not Republican. I'm American. We are all Americans first. So that's it, everyone. Let me know what you think of important comments from Joe Manchin. Pretty incredible comments. Let's show you the comments once again on your screen. There's no number that should be set on at all. We're going to do whatever it takes. If it takes $4 trillion, I'd do $4 trillion. But we have to pay for it. So folks, let me know what you think. And it's already starting to rain money. Check it out. I'm actually drowning in the money. But as I'm drowning, folks, please click the like button. Please subscribe. Please enable notifications. I would really appreciate that. That helps out the YouTube algorithm. Please do that. Oh my God. Oh, my head.